Hi, my name is Martha. Welcome back to my booktube channel. Welcome back to Black Feminist Fridays. Today I'm going to be reviewing Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. I will preface this by saying I understand this is a very popular book in British YA literature canon sort of thing. And I understand that also a lot of people in the UK grew up reading this book and it has also been discussed in schools. So I will say that I liked what this book did. I gave it 3 stars though. So this book is a sci-fi utopian fantasy type of thing where black people who are the crosses are superior and have privilege, and basically there's black supremacy over white people who are the Noughts, and they are the minorities and underprivileged, and basically the roles of black people and white people have been switched. So everything that happens to white people has happened to black people historically, and this kind of mirrors what happened in the 50s and 60s in the West, mainly I think in America, and also maybe mirroring parts of what happened in the UK around that time. I think Mallory Blackman wrote this after the killing of Stephen Lawrence, and I think this mainly fueled a lot of what drove her to write this book. So I appreciate what she did for her that time, and I appreciate that she wrote racism in a way that is easy for young people to understand and comprehend what might have happened to them in a way that they can make sense of why they might be discriminated against, why they're hated for who they are. And in a lot of ways, the conversations about race are very forward looking. I mean, for a book that was written in 2006, we're still talking about band-aids that don't match the color of our skin. I mean, if she was talking about that back then, and right now it looks like a new conversation when really it's been around for all this time. I appreciate that she wasn't pulling any punches, and it wasn't like a Disney story, because real life isn't like that, and the way racism works isn't pretty. So because it is written for young people, I appreciate also that I am not the target audience, and a lot of people grew up with this book. So I appreciate that the target audience is, somewhere around 14 to 16 and stuff. And she writes it in a way that the characters kind of sound like they're 14 and they're 16, and they're not grown, because a lot of YA these days kind of age up the characters and then tell us that they are 15 and 16, which doesn't make sense. And I appreciate that these characters spoke in the way they would at that age, and the audience receiving this would relate directly to how they were speaking at that time. But the thing is with this book, yeah, so it moves from their age at that time from 14 to 16, and we move on to when they're 17 and 19. I thought that the tone of the book would shift from when they were 14 to 16 to 17 and 19, but they were still speaking in the same way and acting in the same way, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I thought they would sound more adult now that they moved into those ages, and they were doing adult things, so I thought they would sound or be written more adult. And I had also issues with how characters would make decisions that wouldn't make sense. So you have Sefi and Callum; those are the main characters. Sefi being Sefi, short for Persephone. Yeah. So you have them having all these emotions and having all these feelings about race and this anger and all these things, and you see how angry Callum is about racism and how he's treated and stuff, and he's mad at Sefi, and rightfully so. You feel mad at the person who is oppressing you, but it's like this feeling just poof after Sefi just does 1, 2, 3 tears, and then they sort it out in the immediately in the scene, and it didn't make sense. Or the a scene where Sefi is kidnapped and injured by Callum, and then in the next breath you're having a sex scene, and it's like, what what is going on? I mean, why? Why is there no resolved um why is there no resolved conflict before any of that happens? Why must we move just to the romance quickly? Like, there is legit, I mean, you have this opportunity to, you have an interracial couple, and they're in a very high tense society, and you can't just be having them move to love every time when the issues surrounding them are so real. You've set this book in a time mirroring the 50s and the 60s. So I don't expect this kind of, just moving along of moving from things very quickly, when ignoring them will, fester a lot of anger very quickly in this tense environment. So I felt like their emotions are not being resolved, and also the emotions are not translating well because the writing was a lot of telling. It was the writing also felt choppy. I think I wrote that down somewhere, and it was like sentence to sentence to sentence. I did this. I went to the store. I bought some apples. I wrote it. I wrote. I went to do this and this. I ABCD, and it felt so, choppy. And a lot of exclamation marks. I don't know why, but yeah, I feel like you could tell the 2000s energy YA writing was jumping out. Also, things about Callum. So he's this revolutionary guy, and he's badass, and he's supposed to be this bad boy and does bad things, but then we're just told that he deals with his enemies, and that's it. Like, so are you really bad or nah? Like, I think this is a common thing that happens with these characters. Like, you know tell us what you promised. I mean, show us what you promised. You've told us that this guy is bad. Show it to us in their actions, and let's see in action how bad they are. Let us judge it for ourselves. I was kind of disconnected with them, and I felt I couldn't feel their anger when they were angry. The book was asking me to be angry and asking me to be mad about their society, and I couldn't, because they weren't dealing with their emotion. Like it wasn't sufficient enough for me. Like, in one scene you have chaos going on, a riot is going on, and then it's just distinguished like that. Like, in just a second, like that. You don't have scenes breathing, you don't have emotions breathing, you don't have conflicts happening and having their moment so that you can move on to the next thing. It's just like, move on to the next romance, move on to the next romantic scene. All that aside, if you've watched all of this, um I mean, it's not surprising, or maybe it is, that I had a problem with the concept of the book itself. Not for the reason that most people do. I mean, a lot of white people say that they don't like the concept because they think it's racist. But for me, I felt this concept didn't translate well a lot of the time. So you have black people doing what white people would do, and vice versa. So there are some situations where it didn't completely translate. Okay, so there's this unfortunate story about this character called Lynette, and she's with her boyfriend, and they are attacked, and that affects her forever. And so you have this situation where three Knots boys, or white boys, I should say, attacked her and her black boyfriend, and she's been affected ever since. But so you're trying to say that it's the underprivileged people who attack them. But I'm struggling to think of a story or a time where it was black people who are attacking interracial couples in the street. In fact, I don't know. I read Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race the other day, and actually, the author, Renier Lodge, actually gave instances of racial attacks by white men who attacked interracial couples. So it's like that didn't completely switch or translate into the real life. And also, the thing, that incident, I don't see how it drove her father to do what he was to go and become radicalized, because this is one of your own who attacked your daughter. So how did you become radicalized? Maybe he was fed up of the system and decided to become radicalized, but like it didn't make sense to me. Yeah, anyway, I was interested in this book because of the TV adaptation that came out, and I saw the trailer and it looked so beautiful, and the cast is looking great, like gorgeous. The sets look gorgeous, and I think I'm gonna look into it afterwards. But the book just didn't work for me, and I hope that the the TV adaptation kind of improved on what was on the page. Yeah. So the version that I read also came with a short story book that came out as well around the same time, I think, called An Eye for an Eye. And I think it's a short story about what happens with Sefi afterwards, and the fallout of the previous events in the book. And once again, I'm not seeing the character motivations working. Sefi does things that don't make sense. I mean, she on one hand wants to die, and then on the other hand, she's scared of someone else dying for her. And it's like, okay, you're not making sense, ma'am. Like, you can't have it both ways. But anyway, what my feeling is that, okay, so I read the first book wanting to catch up to the recent book that just came out, but I don't think I will continue in this series. I still recommend the book. I still think it's a good book to read. I mean, it's quite important in, I mean, in UK Black YA literature, but where I am now, like, I would recommend it to younger people. I would recommend it to teenagers and maybe young adults. But for me, the writing didn't work for me, and I would be too critical on a book that is really not targeted towards me. So I'll just leave it at that, and I think I'll watch the show, and anyway, if you have, I mean, if you have anything to add on to what I've said about this book, you can comment down below. If you loved the book, if you hated the book, please, these are just my opinions. Don't crucify me. But yeah. So comment down below if you have anything to add. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.
This is where I feel. This is where